Welcome to a deep dive into the world of Pablo Picasso, where we'll be exploring his incredible life and career using excerpts from his Wikipedia page.
It's going to be quite a journey as we unpack his ever-changing styles, his fascinating relationships, and the sheer volume of work he created.
And we'll kick things off with something that always makes me smile, Picasso's full name. Ready for this? Pablo Diego José Francisco de Paula Juan, Nepomuceno María de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso is practically a poem.
Well, it's more than just a long name. It reflects a tradition in late 19th century Spain of incorporating family names and the names of revered saints. In Picasso's case, they even included his godparents' names.
Wow, that's quite a mouthful. But extravagant names aside, this guy was seriously gifted. Story goes, his first words were peas, imitating the Spanish word for pencil, lápiz. And get this, by age 7, he was already getting formal art training from his father.
And not just any art training. His father, José Ruiz y Blasco, was a well-established painter known for his incredibly realistic depictions of birds. He was even an art professor and a curator. So you could say young Picasso had art in his genes.
That's for sure. There's even a story about a 13-year-old Picasso painting over one of his father's unfinished pieces. A pigeon, I think. Apparently, his father was so blown away by young Pablo's talent that he swore he'd give up painting altogether.
It's a fantastic anecdote, whether it's entirely true or not, but it does highlight Picasso's incredible artistic development even at that young age and his ability to absorb and transform his influences. You can really see this in his early works.
Amazing. So Picasso was already making waves at a young age, but he wasn't content with sticking to the rules. Are we ready to jump into the whirlwind of Picasso's ever-evolving artistic style?
Hold on tight because it's going to be a wild ride. From somber blues to vibrant pinks, fragmented figures, shattered perspectives, Picasso never stayed in one place for long.
First stop, the Blue Period. Picture a heartbroken Picasso in Paris, mourning the loss of a close friend. He paints the city in these melancholic shades of blue and blue-green, capturing this sense of sadness and isolation.
It's more than just the colors, though. What makes the Blue Period so groundbreaking is his choice of subject matter. Picasso focuses on those often ignored in art. The working class, the poor, the forgotten. It was a radical shift from the idealized subjects of traditional art.
Then, like a burst of sunshine, we have the Rose Period. Think warmer tones, playful harlequins, a touch of romance. It's almost as if Picasso himself had fallen head over heels.
And in a way, he had. This is when he meets Fernando Olivier, an artist and model who becomes his lover and muse, inspiring many of his Rose Period paintings. You can really sense his newfound happiness reflected in the vibrant colors and lively scenes of this period. Even the harlequin, a comedic figure, becomes a recurring motif, almost like a stand-in for this more joyful Picasso.
It's amazing how his personal life is so intertwined with his art. But just when you think you've got Picasso figured out, he throws a curveball. Primitivism. And the painting that became synonymous with this movement was Les Demoiselles d'Avignon.
This is where Picasso really shakes things up. He draws inspiration from African art and Iberian sculptures, rejecting traditional ideas of beauty and perspective. The result is this raw, almost primal energy that really grabs your attention.
It's like those women are breaking free from the canvas. The way he reimagines the human form and the structure of a painting is revolutionary for its time, and this was just the beginning.
You're right. The reaction to Les Demoiselles d'Avignon was certainly mixed, to say the least. Some were captivated, others were horrified. It challenged everything they thought they knew about art. Even Henri Matisse, a close friend and rival, was said to have called it a hoax.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall during that conversation. But out of this controversy, a new movement was born. Cubism. I think most people, when they hear Cubism, they picture those fragmented geometric forms, but there's so much more to it.
Absolutely. Picasso, together with Georges Braque, approached their art almost scientifically. They called it analytical cubism, deconstructing objects, breaking them down into their simplest geometric shapes.
Like they were dissecting the world around them and putting it back together on the canvas.
Exactly. And those muted colors, the browns, the grays, that was all intentional. They wanted the focus to be on form, on space, not on perfectly imitating reality.
So they're challenging us to see the world in a completely new way, to question our own perception of reality.
Exactly. They weren't trying to recreate what we see, but how we understand it. And this exploration of multiple perspective all at once was completely groundbreaking.
But this being Picasso, just when we think Cubism is the final stop, he throws us another curveball. Crystal Cubism.
The name itself is fascinating, isn't it? Crystal cubism. It evokes a sense of clarity, precision. You see these sharp, fragmented lines, geometric shapes layered on top of each other like a shattered mirror or a kaleidoscope. And, what I find even more captivating than the evolution of these styles is the man behind them.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get lost in the art itself.
Right. But Picasso, he was more than just an artist. He was this incredibly vibrant personality, fully immersed in the cultural scene of his time.
Yeah, he wasn't just holed up in a studio somewhere. We're talking about early 20th century Paris, the epicenter of, well, everything.
Exactly. It was like this magnet for creative minds from around the world. You had composers like Stravinsky, writers like Hemingway.
And of course, artists like Picasso and Matisse.
Right. A melting pot of creativity, and Picasso was right there in the thick of it.
Can you imagine those conversations, the collaborations?
Oh, I can only imagine.
And speaking of collaborations, Picasso's personal life, it was anything but boring.
Definitely not. Passionate, tumultuous. Those themes definitely find their way into his art.
Right. And his relationships with women especially were both a source of inspiration and, well, sometimes turmoil, you could say.
Absolutely. And you can really trace that evolution, those relationships, through his changing styles, the subjects he chooses to paint. So true. And when it comes to passion and turmoil, there's one painting that really stands out. Guernica. This monumental piece, inspired by the bombing of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War, it marks a pretty significant shift for Picasso.
Definitely. Guernica, it's this powerful anti-war statement. Stark, black, white, and gray. It captures the chaos, the absolute horror of that event, and it does it with this incredible raw emotion.
You really feel the weight of it.
That bombing, it was a horrific act of violence, and it really affected Picasso deeply.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's that famous story, right, about the German officer who visits Picasso's studio, points to a photo of Guernica and asks, "Did you do that?"
Oh, yes, and Picasso's response, "No, you did." Chilling.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. But it speaks to the power of that painting, right, as this symbol of protest against the brutality of war. Absolutely. Guernica, it resonated with people around the world.
Especially as the world was on the brink of another world war.
Exactly. And what's fascinating about Guernica is how Picasso blends the political with the personal. His lover at the time, Dora Maar, was an incredible photographer.
Right. And you can see her influence in the painting's use of that stark black and white imagery.
Oh, absolutely. Her influence is undeniable. But Guernica, it became more than just a response to a specific event.
It became this timeless representation of the horrors of war.
Which sadly is a sentiment that continues to resonate today.
It's incredible, isn't it, how one work of art can have such a lasting impact.
It really is. And that impact, combined with Picasso's revolutionary style, his personality, it all helped to catapult him to global fame. I mean, think about it. During his lifetime, he had a solo exhibition at the Louvre.
The Louvre.
The first living artist to ever receive that honor.
That's legendary.
Truly. It solidified his place in art history. An innovator. A true original.
And let's not forget how prolific he was. The man never seemed to stop creating. We're talking about thousands and thousands of paintings, sculptures, drawings, prints, everything.
There's actually this massive catalog of his work compiled by Christian Zervos. It includes over 16,000 pieces.
16,000 is mind-boggling.
It really is. And that's part of what makes understanding Picasso's legacy such a challenge. How do you even begin to grasp such a vast and diverse body of work?
It really is incredible. So we've journeyed through Picasso's groundbreaking styles, delved into his larger-than-life personality, and even attempted to grasp the sheer volume of his work. But with all that, where do we even begin to unpack his legacy?
It's a question that has no easy answers, wouldn't you say? Especially with an artist as multifaceted and complex as Picasso.
It feels almost impossible to sum up, doesn't it? It's like choosing a favorite star from a sky full of them.
Yeah.
If you could own just one Picasso from any period, which one would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. A haunting blue period portrait? Maybe a lively rose period scene? Or perhaps a mind-bending cubist masterpiece?
It's almost a question that goes beyond personal taste, isn't it?
I think so. It pushes us to really confront the full scope of his legacy. Can we celebrate the revolutionary artist while also recognizing the complexities of his personal life?
It's a conversation that we can't shy away from. We can't talk about Picasso without acknowledging some of the darker aspects of his life.
Absolutely. Those complicated relationships, the way he treated women, it's all part of the conversation.
And it's those very contradictions that continue to fuel the debate, the discussion around Picasso. His art is inseparable from the man who created it.
You said it. We are left grappling with it all. The brilliance, the flaws, it's a lot to process.
It really is. But maybe that's what truly great art does. It challenges us, provokes us, keeps us engaged in those difficult questions. It doesn't let us off easy.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Great art shouldn't be comfortable, and Picasso's work embodies that perfectly. It forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths, to look beyond the surface, and ultimately come to our own conclusions.
So where do we go from here? We've explored the depths of Picasso's Wikipedia page, but it feels like we've barely scratched the surface.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? Picasso's legacy isn't static. It's not confined to the pages of a textbook or the walls of a museum.
It's a living, breathing thing.
Exactly. It lives on in the conversations we have about his work, the emotions it evokes, the interpretations it continues to inspire.
He's left us with quite a puzzle to ponder, wouldn't you say?
He certainly has.
So tell us, what piece of that puzzle resonates most with you? If you could own one Picasso from any period, what would it be and why? Tweet us your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, we'll leave you to contemplate the multifaceted genius of Pablo Picasso. But remember, the exploration doesn't end here. Keep diving deep into the subjects that fascinate you. Keep questioning and keep those conversations going. All right, ready for a deep dive? Today we're heading straight into the heart of the Inca Empire.
Oh, yeah, Inca. Always a good time for that.
You sent over some fascinating Wikipedia research on them, and I gotta say, this isn't your typical history class stuff.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're talking about a civilization so advanced, like, honestly, put some modern societies to shame.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. They built this huge, intricate empire without some pretty basic stuff we take for granted.
Yeah, like wheels.
Wheels,
Right.
right. No wheels, no written alphabet. But did they let that stop them? No.
Yeah.
They are incredible.
Okay, so let's break this down a little. You know, for our listener, we're talking about the Inca Empire, right?
Right.
Also known as Tuantansuyu,
Catchy name.
which means land of four parts. And we're not talking about, you know, some little kingdom here.
No.
This was an empire that stretched like across a huge chunk of South America, way beyond modern-day Peru.
Yeah, and they held it all together without the stuff we rely on today, you know?
Like smartphones.
Smartphones, the internet, even cars.
Oh, cars.
Forget about it. The Inca, they were masters of organization.
Okay, so how? How did they do it?
Well, they had this amazing system
Okay.
of knotted strings called quipu to keep records.
Wait, knotted strings?
Knotted strings?
Like an ancient spreadsheet or something?
Kind of. Each knot, the color, the placement on the string, it all meant something. Sadly, a lot of that knowledge, it was lost
Oh, I bet.
during the Spanish conquest. But researchers are, they're working on it, trying to piece together these codes, unlock even more secrets of the Inca.
That's like a whole library's worth of history just hanging by a thread. Literally.
It's incredible, right?
Okay, so they had these roads, right? We talked about the roads.
Incredible road.
But no cars.
Yep.
No horses even.
Think even more impressive.
Okay.
Super runners.
Like marathon runners?
The chasquis, that's what they were called. They would relay messages across this network of roads covering incredible distances.
Wow.
And get this, they fueled these ultra marathons by chewing coca leaves.
Coca leaves. Now, wait a minute. Isn't that?
Yes. The same plant that cocaine is derived from.
Yeah.
But before you go there, for the Inca, the coca plant, that was sacred.
Oh.
Not recreational. It was everything. It was pain relief. It was a way to suppress hunger during those long runs.
Oh,
Can
that's
you
right.
imagine?
Right. They'd just be running and chewing on that.
Having surgery with coca leaves as your anesthetic.
Oh, no, thank you. I'm good.
Right.
So we've got these builders, these messengers, this whole system of record keeping. It's easy to get caught up in the technology of it all, right?
It's fascinating.
But what about the people? Who were the Inca?
Well, their origin story is the stuff of legends. Okay, imagine this. Manco Capac and Mama Oclo emerging from the depths of Lake Titicaca, sent by the sun god, Inti himself.
Okay, hold on. Lake Titicaca, that's not just some random lake, right?
No.
That is.
We're talking largest navigable lake in the world. high up in the Andes, so not exactly a casual dip in the water.
Right.
The Inca believed that Manco Capac and Mama Oclo were sent by Inti, the sun god, carrying a golden staff to establish this mighty, mighty empire.
So, like, from the very beginning, they're connecting themselves to the divine. They're not just rulers. They're practically demigods.
Exactly. And this connection wasn't just, for show. It was deeply ingrained in their society.
Right.
Take the Inti Raymi, for example, their incredible sun festival.
Sun festival.
Okay. Picture Cusco, their capital city, all decked out for this huge event. Soldiers, priests, nobles,
Everybody.
even mummies of their former rulers are paraded around.
Wait, they brought out mummies to a party.
You heard that right, but this wasn't just any party.
Right.
This was a huge deal.
Okay.
A combination of a religious ceremony, a New Year's bash, and just this powerful display of the empire's might, Wow.
All rolled into one.
Okay.
And at the heart of it all was the Sapa Inca, the emperor, ritually plowing the earth, symbolizing the start of a new agricultural cycle.
Which makes total sense, right? I mean, we can't forget this is a civilization that flourished in a pretty challenging environment. We're talking high up in the Andes Mountains. Agriculture, that wasn't just about food, that was about survival.
Absolutely. And they were incredibly resourceful about it,
Yeah.
They carved these terraces into the mountainsides, created irrigation systems. They did what they had to do to make the most of what they had,
Right.
their connection to the land. It was remarkable.
Okay, so we've got the spiritual side, we've got the resourcefulness, but can we just talk about the building skills for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Machu Picchu, come on.
To build something so magnificent, so high up, without modern tools, it blows my mind.
Yeah. It still boggles the mind. Machu Picchu, it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Inca engineering.
Really?
These guys are masters of stonework. I mean, fitting these massive stones together so precisely, they didn't even need mortar. And those structures, they were built to last. I mean, they've survived earthquakes centuries later.
Okay. Talk about building for the apocalypse.
Right.
That level of skill, the organization, it makes you wonder. How did they keep everything running smoothly?
Wow.
I mean, we're talking about a massive, diverse population spread across some pretty harsh terrain.
Right, but remember that decimal system I mentioned earlier?
The knotted strings.
Well, it wasn't just for counting. It was the backbone of their entire social structure.
How so?
Okay, so picture a pyramid. At the base, you've got families grouped into units of 10, overseen by a local leader.
Okay.
Then those groups are clustered into 50s, then hundreds, all the way up to the Sapa Inca at the very top.
So it's like this giant machine.
Yes.
Each part working together.
A well-oiled machine.
Wow.
And incredibly effective.
Right.
This system, along with their amazing infrastructure, it allowed them to maintain control, collect taxes, deploy their military, all with incredible efficiency.
That's amazing.
It is. But as with all empires, cracks, they start to show.
Oh no, here it comes.
And for the Inca, those cracks appeared with the arrival of a force unlike anything they'd ever encountered, the Spanish conquistadors.
Okay, I know. Spanish conquistadors. We've all heard it before, right?
Yeah.
But stick with us on this one. Because the story of how the Inca, with all their might, all their just everything they built, how they fell to this, relatively small band of Europeans.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lesson in and of itself.
It really is. And you got to hand it to the Inca, though. I mean, we are talking about a civilization that thrived in one of the most just extreme environments on Earth.
Yeah.
The Andes Mountains, those are no joke.
No.
And they didn't just survive up there. They flourished.
I've been to Denver.
Yeah.
And that was high enough for me. I can't imagine building like an empire at those altitudes.
Right.
How did they do it? Was it like some secret Inca superpower?
Well, they were definitely adapted. I mean, think about it. Larger lung capacity, more red blood cells compared to us lowlanders.
Oh, wow.
And over generations, those who were best suited to living high up, they were the ones who thrived. Pass those traits along.
So natural selection.
Exactly. Survival of the fittest.
So it wasn't just about, clever engineering and social structures. It was in their biology.
It's in their DNA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating. But speaking of their ingenuity, can we talk about that whole writing thing again? Or rather, the lack of it?
Right.
I've always been baffled by how they managed such a complex empire without a written language, as we know it.
Yeah. It all comes back to those quipu. those knotted cords.
Right.
They weren't just, tallying potatoes. This was serious business. They were recording everything. Tax records, historical events. I mean, imagine the time, the skill involved in creating and then interpreting all these knots.
Okay, so say you're an Inca historian, right?
Okay.
And you're faced with this massive pile of quipu.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
I mean, on the one hand, excitement, right?
Sure.
It's like, oh, a library full of ancient secrets, but you've only got like a fraction of the code book.
Right.
It's a puzzle,
Yeah.
and one that researchers are still working tirelessly to solve.
Wow.
Each knot, each color variation, it holds a potential clue to understanding the intricacies of Inca life.
Man, talk about a pressure-filled job. Makes you wonder how much knowledge, how many stories were just lost because of the conquest.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But even with what we have uncovered, I mean, the Inca Empire, it never ceases to amaze.
Right.
One thing I find really interesting is how they integrated conquered populations into their empire. Oh, interesting.
It wasn't always brute force. They were surprisingly strategic.
Really?
And dare I say, diplomatic at times.
Tell me more.
Okay, so they understood that a stable empire, it needed more than just military muscle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
They were masters at playing the long game. Sometimes they'd form these strategic alliances, right?
Yeah, okay.
Other times they, use religion to their advantage.
Oh, interesting.
Merging Inca beliefs with local traditions. And then there was Mitma.
Mitma, is that like some Inca martial art?
Not quite, but imagine, okay, the Inca, they relocate a group of skilled weavers, right? From one corner of the empire to another.
Okay.
On the surface, it might seem harsh, right?
Yeah.
But it served a purpose. I mean, it spread Inca influence and it broke up any potential resistance. So it was like, it's a way of maintaining control, but also kind of encouraging cultural exchange in a way, right?
Exactly. It's a reminder that the Inca, they weren't this monolithic force, you know what I mean?
Right.
They were adaptable, they were strategic, and far more nuanced than I think a lot of people realize.
Okay, so we've got these builders, we've got these master strategists, but what about, their artistic side? The Wikipedia research you sent over mentioned that their textiles were, they were next level.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently they even used them to, reflect architectural designs.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's amazing.
Inca textiles were truly in a league of their own.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about your average tunic here. They used everything from the wool of llamas and alpacas.
Of course,
Yeah.
when you're in the Andes.
Right. To the super soft, luxurious fibers of the vicuña.
Fancy.
Which, that was usually reserved for the elite.
Makes sense.
But it wasn't just about the material. Their designs were incredible.
Yeah.
Full of symbolism, artistry.
So, okay, I'm picturing a vicuña sweater with the blueprint of Machu Picchu woven into it. Am I close?
You're not wrong. They incorporated everything. Geometric patterns, animals, deities, you name it. Some scholars even believe that these designs, they weren't just decorative.
Oh, really?
They were a form of visual language, telling stories, conveying social status, maybe even recording historical events.
Wow. Talk about wearable history. That's amazing.
Right.
It's just amazing how much thought and meaning they poured into everything they did. Sadly, I bet a lot of these textiles were lost during the conquest.
Well, unfortunately, you were right. Many were destroyed. But thankfully, some survived.
Oh, good.
Tucked away in museums, private collections, and let me tell you, these surviving pieces, they are more than just cloth. They are tangible links to this vibrant, sophisticated culture that once flourished.
We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
It's incredible, from their mind-blowing architecture to those incredible textiles.
Amazing stuff.
But something we haven't touched on yet is their belief system. Their connection to the divine. The Wikipedia article you sent over mentions that they were polytheistic, meaning they worshipped a whole bunch of gods.
Oh, yeah. A whole pantheon of gods.
Right.
And it makes sense when you think about their relationship with nature.
Right.
Living high up in the Andes, surrounded by those towering peaks and fertile valleys. I mean, it's no wonder they saw the divine and everything.
Right. So who are the A-listers in this Inca pantheon? Who got the most offerings?
Well, top billing definitely goes to Inti, the sun god.
Makes sense.
He was the big guy,
Mm.
considered the ancestor of the Sapa Inca himself. Remember that whole divine right to rule thing?
Oh, yeah.
Inti was the source of that.
So Inti's their Zeus or Ra, the ultimate power player.
Exactly. But the Inca weren't all about the sun and stars. They were very much grounded in the here and now.
Correct.
Pachamama, for example, she was another incredibly important deity. She was the Earth Mother, representing fertility, the abundance of the land.
Again, with their reliance on agriculture, it makes sense that they'd give Pachamama a lot of love.
Oh, yeah. What kind of offerings are we talking about here?
Think coca leaves, potatoes, corn,
Okay.
and of course, no offering to Pachamama would be complete without a little chicha.
Ah, chicha. Our listeners probably thinking, didn't they mention that before?
Sure.
Well, listener, we did. It's a bit like a corn beer, right?
Yeah.
And clearly a crowd pleaser in the Inca Empire.
Oh, yeah. It was a big part of many of their rituals and celebrations, a way to, connect with the divine.
Right.
And let loose a little.
Okay, so back to keeping this massive empire together. Even with their love of chicha, I'm guessing it wasn't all fun and games. How did they do it? I mean, we're talking about a time long before instant messaging and Zoom calls. Well, you've got to hand it to them. The Inca, they were masters of organization. I mean, they had this incredible system of roads, administrative centers, storehouses, all strategically placed throughout this vast empire.
We talked about the Kapaknan, that massive network of roads, but what about these administrative centers? What went down there?
Think of them like mini cities.
Okay.
Strategically placed throughout the empire where officials could collect taxes, distribute resources, just, keep things running smoothly. They even had these amazing storehouses called kolkas, filled with food, supplies in case of emergencies.
It sounds like they had a plan for everything.
They did.
Talk about being prepared.
They were incredibly forward-thinking, always thinking ahead, anticipating problems, finding solutions. But even the most, well-prepared empires, they have vulnerabilities.
Right.
And for the Inca, one of those vulnerabilities was something they had absolutely no control over: disease.
Right. The arrival of the Spanish brought not only, just conflict and all that, but also these deadly diseases, right? Like smallpox, which just devastated the Inca population.
Millions died. It was awful.
The stark reminder that sometimes, even the most advanced civilizations can be brought down by forces they can't even see.
It's a tragic but crucial part of the story. It highlights the importance of perspective. I mean, the Inca Empire, it might be long gone, but their innovations, their culture, their very existence, it continues to teach us so much about, human potential, about the complexities of history.
It's been incredible, hasn't it, listener? I mean, we've explored everything from their breathtaking architecture to their sophisticated social structures. We delved into their belief system, their mastery of engineering and agriculture, and their tragic fall.
And what's amazing is how much there still is to learn, right? I mean, the Inca Empire, with all its mysteries and complexities, it continues to captivate historians and archaeologists today.
So to our listener out there, if there's one thing we hope you take away from this deep dive, it's this. Don't let the grandeur of Machu Picchu overshadow the incredible story of the people who built it. The Inca Empire, despite its end, it offers this treasure trove of knowledge, of inspiration, and just this profound reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit. Ever get that feeling, like when you're looking at something and you just get this feeling like there's got to be more to it.
I know what you mean.
Like we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
That's Euclid's Elements for me. Because on the one hand, it's geometry, shapes, lines, angles, all that.
Right.
But then you look a little closer and it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This thing has been studied for centuries.
Oh, absolutely.
By everyone.
Yeah.
Philosophers, presidents, even Einstein's in the mix.
That's right.
So you sent over those Wikipedia excerpts, and I gotta say, I'm ready to go deeper.
I think you'll be surprised at how deeply this one book has impacted, everything.
See, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just some dusty old textbook.
No.
This is like the Beyonce of textbooks.
Okay.
I mean, second only to the Bible in terms of how many editions have been printed.
It really speaks to its staying power. Imagine this. This was written around 300 BC.
300 BC.
And yet folks like Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo,
Whoa.
even Newton. They all had their copies, building upon Euclid's ideas.
Okay, sure. The science all-stars, I get it.
Right.
But then you've got Abraham Lincoln.
Right.
Teaching himself law by night, and his guide is Euclid. Not legal textbooks, no sir, elements.
That's wild.
And it makes you wonder,
What?
did he picture those courtroom arguments as, like, geometric proofs?
Interesting.
Did Euclid's logic influence how Lincoln approached justice?
It's fascinating to consider, isn't it? Because that's the essence of Euclid's work, this dedication to rigorous logical thinking, and it clearly resonated far beyond geometry. You mentioned Einstein.
Oh, yeah.
Even he cited elements as a formative influence alongside a simple compass.
Which, honestly, kind of an amazing endorsement coming from the guy who redefined gravity.
Sure.
It's like saying peanut butter and elements, those were my jam.
Right.
But it speaks to something we often overlook, the elegance of simplicity.
Exactly. And it's that elegance, that clarity of thought that we're going to unpack now, because within elements, you find a system, almost like a game, where you level up your understanding with each page.
Okay, so explain it to me like I'm back in geometry class, but this time you're a cool tutor who actually makes this stuff interesting.
Imagine you walk into Euclid's classroom, right? You've got your blank slate, and all he gives you are a compass and a straight edge.
Really?
No calculators.
Wow.
No fancy software, just those two tools.
Talk about minimalist learning.
Right?
So what do you do? Just doodle shapes for a while.
Not quite.
Okay.
He starts with the basics, definitions, common notions, things everyone can agree on.
Okay.
Then come the postulates, these foundational statements that underpin everything else.
Right.
And from there, using just those simple tools and logical steps, he builds.
Building what exactly?
Let me give you an example of this Euclidean construction.
Yeah, like what are we making here?
Well, take something as seemingly basic as an equilateral triangle.
Okay.
Euclid shows you, step by step,
Yeah.
how to construct a perfect one.
Okay.
Using just your compass and straight edge.
Wow.
And each construction, each proof, builds upon the ones before it.
So it's like those Lego sets where you start with a pile of bricks and end up with a whole spaceship.
Exactly.
Okay.
Except instead of a spaceship, you're building an understanding of geometry.
Right.
And in a way, an understanding of how logic itself works.
I like it.
But here's the kicker.
What's that?
And this is where things get really juicy.
Oh, tell me more.
Elements isn't perfect.
Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Are you telling me this supposedly groundbreaking work, this masterpiece of logic, has flaws?
It does.
Yeah.
And those imperfections are what make it so captivating.
Okay.
Remember those postulates we talked about?
Yeah. There's one in particular.
Okay.
The infamous parallel postulate.
Right.
That caused a real ruckus in the math world.
The parallel postulate.
You know it?
That's the one about lines meeting or not, right?
That's the one.
I always felt like I was missing something with that one.
It seems deceptively simple.
Really?
Imagine two perfectly straight train tracks stretching off into the distance.
Okay.
The parallel postulate basically says that those tracks will never meet, right?
Right. Seems straightforward enough. What's the big controversy about parallel lines? It's like arguing about whether the sky is blue.
You'd think so, but for mathematicians, it was this nagging question.
What's that?
Could you actually prove the parallel postulate using Euclid's other postulates?
Okay.
Or did you just have to kind of accept it as a given? So it was like the trust me on this one part of the geometry textbook.
Exactly.
And mathematicians are the friends who are all, but WHY, show me the workings.
Exactly. They wanted to know, could you break it down using just those basic tools and that logic that Euclid gave them? Or was it something fundamentally different?
Okay.
And for centuries, they tried.
Really?
But every attempt seemed to hit a wall, like they were missing a key ingredient.
Okay, now I'm hooked. So what happened? Did they just all collectively shrug and move on?
No, because that's where things get really interesting. What if, they thought, the parallel postulate wasn't some universal truth?
Okay.
What if, by tweaking it, by imagining those train tracks actually could meet somewhere in some, like, mind-bending reality, what if that opened up entirely new dimensions of mathematics?
Hold on, are we talking about, like, alternate universes here? Because my brain's already struggling with imaginary train tracks.
In a way, yes. Challenging this seemingly basic assumption led to the discovery of non-Euclidean geometries.
Non-Euclidean geometry.
These are systems of geometry where the parallel postulate doesn't hold true.
Okay.
And it turns out they're not just mathematical curiosities, they're essential for understanding things like relativity and the curvature of space-time.
Whoa. Okay, back up for a sec. Are you saying Euclid, with his compass and straight lines, accidentally gave us a glimpse into how the universe actually works? I thought Einstein was the one with the whole curved space-time thing.
He was. But think of it like this. Euclid provided the foundational language of geometry, the building blocks. And what mathematicians discovered centuries later is that those blocks could be arranged in ways Euclid himself never imagined.
So, by questioning one seemingly tiny assumption,
Right.
they basically blew open the doors to a whole new understanding of, well, everything.
Precisely. And that, I think, is the most important takeaway from Elements. It's not that it's a perfect, flawless system. Remember, we talked about those flaws.
Right.
It's that those imperfections, those points of contention, force people to think critically, to re-examine their assumptions. And in doing so, they made groundbreaking discoveries.
That's pretty inspiring, isn't it?
It is.
This idea that sometimes being wrong, or at least not entirely right, can be the catalyst for something amazing.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of always questioning, of digging deeper, of never being afraid to challenge those truths that we often take for granted. Just like those mathematicians who dared to imagine a world beyond parallel lines. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us when we embrace curiosity and dare to challenge the rules.
So to our listeners out there, maybe wrestling with those same geometry flashbacks we had, there's a bigger lesson here. It's not about memorizing theorems or drawing perfect triangles. It's about cultivating that Euclid-inspired curiosity. Question everything. Explore those what-ifs. And who knows? You might just stumble upon the next groundbreaking discovery. And if you do, tell us about it. We'd love to dive in with you. Until then, happy exploring.